tonight I'm up in my style. As you could tell, I made a promise a few weeks ago that I was going to try to become a real man, that I was going to become a gentleman. I was going to strive to, while I'll still be a potty-mouthed, immature little boy up here, you know, I'm still going to try to give off the aura that I'm a gentleman. I think I owe it to myself because I'm an Italian man after all, goddammit. That's what it's about. If we're not faking it till we make it, if we're not trying to look like more than we are, look more put together than we are, put appearance above all else, what's the fucking point? What's the fucking point? The only other good part about being Italian, arguably, the only other thing as cool as being able to feel like it's appropriate to dress in this way, which is to say, well, as an Italian person, the only other thing that's as good as this is the feeling of beating the French. Luciano Spalletti didn't have a great summer. It's still the summer. We're still technically in early September. It's not yet the fall, although it does feel like, as a new football season is beginning and as, temperatures dropping, it does kind of feel like a turning of the page and having to perhaps leave Euro 2024 in the rearview mirror. But it is still the summer, and it is nice in some way to close out the summer with a little bit of positivity after a couple of months of panic. I mean, listen, this didn't consume me every day thinking about what Spalletti was going to do with the Italian national team en route to the World Cup in 2026. But, in the back of your mind, whenever you think about it, for a couple of months, there was a lot of anguish and, if nothing else, just uncertainty as to what we would do, how we would go about bouncing back. Because it was very bleak. Recall, 2 short months ago, losing to Switzerland, looking real toothless, really toothless, despite knowing that we had more to give. There are systemic issues in Italian football, but I don't even know that that's necessarily what was on display in that game. It was just a failure of the current regime, the current management. And the honorable thing to do would have been to step down. Spalletti arguably should have done that. I mean, that's what might have been expected of him, right? Someone in his position would have almost always done something like that. It is the honorable move in that case. But he was back. The project was back. And we had no other choice but to have him be the guy to pick the team and hope for the best. And I mean, here we are. Who could be mad? Who could be mad today? It's never a bad day when you get to march over to Paris and beat the French on home soil. Who the fuck could be mad about that? I don't think we're the best team in the world. I don't know that we'll be the best team in the world for a little while, but one thing's for sure, we're still competitive on any given day. And that's sports. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. But by God, does it feel good to beat the French. I'm Sam Adamo, and this is the Bordello. All right, what's going on, folks? Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another episode of the Bordello. I'm Sam Adamo. Even though you might have mistaken me for Luigi Lauro or some other dream man who your mom looks at and says, "Wow, that's who I want my daughter to wind up with." Is you. You wouldn't think I sound like I'm from a sewer. You look at me and you think, "Oh, he doesn't speak English." It's what I'm going for today, in honor of La Patria, in honor of the land of Giorgia Meloni. Thank God we bounced back after that brutal opening minute, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about the game, as a whole in a sec here. But thank God we were able to bounce back and get a result, a very important win in France, just for morale, not because the Nations League is important, although it is, of course, important in the scope of what the Nations League is and what it means. France away was probably going to be the hardest game that we have between now and Christmas. And we won, which is great. It's tournaments like this, mini tournaments like this, that enable you to experiment and build morale without the pressure of having to qualify for a World Cup. So in some ways, these games are great. But the reason it was important today was because we had to bounce back after the absolute, capitulation against Switzerland, despite having a much better team than them, to go out of the Euro. In some way, the game today makes us, it almost adds more questions, or it adds more, what if. You could do the whataboutism thing a little more now after today. Well, what about the fact that we actually, what about the fact that we actually could have had, a better shot at beating Switzerland on that given day had we approached it a little bit differently? I don't know what happened that day. We don't have to talk about it. I mean, we did a whole, a whole post-game episode 2 months ago after that game happened, talking about how it was maybe the worst Italy game that I'd ever seen, and probably many of you. But it's not because we had the worst team ever. It was actually because of how strong a team we had on paper. Granted, it wasn't the best Italian team we've ever had, but it's good enough to go, deeper in the tournament than we did. At least to put up a fight. And we didn't have that. And so the fear today was that we would go out and just completely capitulate again, because we have the same coach and many of the same players. Some have been turned over, and there are some new faces in, which is great. But, I mean, like 20 seconds into the game, I mean, just what was everyone's fear going into this game, right? Well, first of all, we have an indefinite amount of time more of hearing Luciano Spalletti's press conferences, which, until he's done anything wrong you kind of enjoy. They're relaxing to go to sleep to. Then eventually, when things don't go well with him, they become like nails on a chalkboard. They become infuriating because you just hear a guy yapping without really being as direct as some of the other successful coaches in world football. So, one of the fears is you have years of him going, Abbiamo ritrovato un giocatore fantastico oggi, Sandro Tonali, un giocatore fantastico. I saw a quote earlier. He was reveling in how great it was to have a guy like him back. And again, that's a fun thing to hear if it's going well. If it's not going well, it's infuriating to hear this old man, just pontificate about football and so on. That's one fear. Number two, maybe that was just a personal thing. For me, that was a fear of mine, was that I was going to have to keep hearing this guy's press conferences and reading quotes in his accent, in his voice. Number two was the fact that Giovanni Di Lorenzo, this is the second concern that we had going into this game, I think, was that Giovanni Di Lorenzo was still getting the vote of confidence. He was one of the few guys that probably was given a longer leash than he arguably deserved. There were some guys that were unceremoniously axed. Darmian's out, too old. Acerbi's out, too old, turning over a new leaf. Jorginho's out. Trying to think. Brian Cristante was firmly in the rear view now. He was not recalled, even though he's starting for Roma. He's out of the project. It's done, New blood was brought in. Tonali, excellent. Back from the gambling ban. Great to see him again. Solid game. We really could have used him in the Euro. Really could have used him in the Euro. A lot of people were mad that Locatelli didn't get taken to the Euro. I think I look at the game today and I say, what the fuck could Locatelli have done that would have been better than what Ricci and Tonali did in particular? I get that he's all right on the ball. I don't know that he's a game breaker. Spalletti's kind of dying on that hill. But basically, there's been a turning over of a new leaf here. A couple of new faces were brought in. Moise Kean is one of them, which is a bit of a weird one, but I know he's got like some kind of quality. But is Moise Kean the answer in 2024? I don't know. Arguably not, but he's turned over a new leaf. He's at Fiorentina now. He's going to get a lot of playing time. He has so far. All right, God bless. I'm open to it. Marco Brescianini made his first cap today. He's the same age as Moise Kean. They're born like a month apart. Moise Kean's been getting Italy caps for the past 5 years. So it's possible. He's young enough to turn it around. I don't think he will, but it's neither here nor there. I'm open to new ideas. I am open to new ideas. Destiny Udogie coming back from injury. Terrific. Fucking terrific. A guy who I think in the game today had a couple of moments where you would have liked him to have been a little more responsible defensively, but you say, hey, that's a guy who we can kind of depend on. Modern. Still young enough to absorb more info like a sponge. Learn more, but already has good base. Playing for Tottenham, starting most games, I think, excellent. It's exactly what you want. Giovanni Di Lorenzo is kind of like this weird, odd guy out now who doesn't really make sense anymore. It doesn't make sense why he's in the team. But, of course, he's from the Napoli days, and, Di Lorenzo was Spalletti's captain. And he's still fucking loyal to him. And then 13 seconds into the game, the first pass he gets back, the first touch after, a horrible summer. Not a great opening game with Napoli under Conte. Scores a goal, I think, in the second game. Starts crying. So he's just an emotional mess right now. I don't want to see a guy, I don't want to see the captain of my team crying because he scores in the second game because the pressure's been so great. That, to me, doesn't look like a guy who's at ease. Then he gets called up, and the first time he gets the ball, he coughs it up, and we get scored on. We broke the fucking record from the Albania game. We're breaking, it's new frontier. Every time we start a new tournament now, we win the game, and we concede a goal even earlier than the last tournament. 21 seconds wasn't fast enough. Now, we halved it. I think we conceded a goal after like 10 or 12 seconds. And yet, Donnarumma had a good game, but we didn't really have a ton of... There were a couple of moments in the first half where we looked defensively all over the place, but then we sort of settled down eventually. And Donnarumma didn't have to do a ton, Like in, for example, the Swiss game. He had to stand on his head to keep us in the game at all. This wasn't really one of those games that I could recall. He didn't have any crazy moments because we capitulated beyond, the first 15 minutes. Di Lorenzo didn't even have a bad game beyond that first touch, but it's like, fuck, I don't know. It doesn't look good. It's not a good look when that's the fear that we have this, kind of not really a modern fullback. I mean, he's playing as a right center back, kind of out of position in a fluid system that can pivot to a back four. Spalletti's like, he's hell-bent on the back three now. Then as the game progressed, he wound up shifting to a back four. He wound up clearly shifting to a 4-4-2 with Di Marco and Udogie being the two wide guys, then Di Lorenzo and Cambiaso on the right being the two wide guys, with Ricci and Tonali in the middle. Then at one point, Brescianini came in, and I think it kind of became a bit more of a... Christ, I don't even know. I guess it was kind of like more of a... Kind of like a 4-4-2, but like without maybe two proper forwards. Or am I misremembering? Jesus, am I misremembering? I think actually it might have been a defender who came out. Yeah, right. I think it was... Di Marco came out, Brescianini went in, then Udogie pivoted to left back, and then I think we were kind of running with like a 4-2-3-1 system just based on the guys we had. And again, I'm not flexing my ball knowledge on you here. I'm just describing what happened, which is we started off with the intention of going to a back three, and then we kind of were fluid. So basically, you acknowledge that Di Lorenzo in the team can't play as a wing back. Right? We agree on that. That's not the role that he's being given. Well, what's the point then? At that point, just have a natural... Why not have like Buongiorno play in some capacity? He's a lot more, accustomed to playing in the back three. That feels like it's a smarter move. I don't know. So Spalletti's gonna have to decide what to do here. I mean, we'll know what's going on in a few days when we play Israel. A couple things here. Okay, observations about the game off the top of my head. I think Reteghi's a guy that's interesting. His hair is abysmal. Two worst haircuts on the team are him, by far. And Federico Di Marco, who's hanging on to nothing, But I do appreciate the work his barber's doing with the blonde, trying to hide it with the very light-colored pink chrome dome. It's kind of working. Honest to God, it's almost working. Awful haircut, nonetheless. And, who did I just say? Fucking Di Marco and... Christ, am I stupid? Oh, yeah. Fucking Reteghi. Bad hair. Good man to lead the line. I don't know. Tries to get forward. I always like seeing him play with his back to goal. Every time I've seen him start for Italy in particular, I've liked him. And I think he's... what would be nice is if we could have a better world-class striker, and Reteghi would be a guy who scores goals in the local league, in Serie A, who's an option. You say that, though, and then every time he starts, he kind of looks good. get stuff going forward. But if you look at like Spain, I mean, I guess Spain don't really have a world-class forward. I guess you could argue that Morata's maybe a bit more, he's got a longer track record of scoring for big clubs. But Spain's a good example of having like relief guys. Morata would kind of lead the line. Then you'd have like, some guy from Sociedad, who's competent. What's his name? Oyarzabal. Whatever. I should actually know how to pronounce that better. I look Neapolitan right now. Naples is a former Spanish kingdom. I don't know. I do like him. I do think he had a good showing. I would want to see more of him, which is just fantastic because Kamak is going to be out fucking all season. We don't really have any other proven options right now. So, until anyone else proves otherwise, he's kind of got to be the guy going forward. I'm really happy to see Tonali back. Tonali back was excellent. Samuel Ricci, I don't know how much confidence the coach actually has in him. I heard him barking at Ricci a lot during the game. Maybe it's because he has the same name as me, so I would just hear Samuel, and it would kind of just snap me out of, whatever I was doing. I was focusing on one thing, and I would just hear someone calling my name, and I would go, what? Oh my God, he hates him. He's got to micromanage him all the time because I kept clocking every time Spalletti would call his name out. But maybe because that's also just like from one of my worst nightmares. It's just like Luciano Spalletti's voice calling out my name. I would wake up in a fucking cold sweat and have to sprint to the bathroom and just pull trig and throw up, dude. If I in the middle of the night, I just have a dream of Spalletti going, Samuele. Be like, leave me alone. It's like my worst nightmare, dude. But I don't think he had an awful game. I think he's an interesting guy who should be involved in the team going forward. I'm more than happy to see him going forward. But one thing that I had cross my mind during the game was I don't want to sound crazy, but I still think there's a place for Marco Verratti in this team. I really do. He's going to be 32 this year. He'll still be competent enough to play at the World Cup in 2 years. I think he has one more cycle in him. Minimum, truly. Because when you're a guy of that level of quality, I think you're able to play until a more advanced age. I get that you have to run and you're an engine in midfield, but I don't find I don't know. I've seen it work. Been watching football a long time. I've seen older midfield generals work. The problem with him is, so not only the fact that he's in Qatar, but that he's not playing football anymore. He plays paddleball now. He plays paddle, whatever it's called, right? Padel. Whatever the Spanish call them. Whatever in the Spanish, the French, they like that. Even Italians. Giochiamo padel. It's like tennis in a box. Apparently he just does that now. He suns his balls and he goes to play paddle. He's barely a pro footballer anymore. I heard he's making £575,000 a week. £575,000 a week. He's making tens of millions of dollars a year to play in Qatar. So, but I also heard 3 weeks ago that apparently his agent offered him to like 4 Premier League clubs, one of them being Liverpool. And it didn't materialize, but you got to think like if he comes back to play in the Premier League, all of a sudden he's back in the team. He's got to be. The concern is that like his brain isn't on at all times, but I mean, Kante's still playing for France, albeit they haven't done superbly with him, but I don't know that you necessarily lose all that just because you go to play in a lesser league. You're still the guy. It's about context, Yeah, he's off the map, but I don't know if you were in Saudi Arabia, then might we consider him? Is the Qatari league that much worse than the Saudi league? It may very well be, but I would still like to see him in the team. That's just one kind of raw thought I had. But, it's always nice when you see a guy like Brescianini get a first cap. That's excellent. Fucking more of that. Sure, fine. Didn't really have a ton to show, Maybe against Israel. See how that goes. But, we could win this fucking group. Which would be excellent. I mean, I'm kind of tired of hearing about, like, how great Belgium is. I've not really bought their bullshit for a long time. They could, I guess, beat us in any given game, but I think that'll be really competitive, and I think we should absolutely be looking to beat Belgium. They beat Israel today, and I think we're tied with them on top of the group. We both, I think, won 3-1. But I'm tired of hearing about Belgium's quality. I'm very bored of it. It's a bore to me. I don't want to hear about how good Belgium is anymore. They had a crop of guys born between 1990 and 1995 who were strong, and that was it. Those guys are slowly fading into oblivion. I mean, again, there's certain quality that just doesn't go away, right? Kevin De Bruyne is a guy who could have an impact on any game he's in, but I've never found that team is as competent, from top to bottom in terms of like the actual players they have. I don't find that the players they have ever been quite competent, enough to do it for me anyway, where I have the same confidence as like the fucking German team or the Spanish team or the French team, the Italian team, even the English team, whatever. Maybe I'm nuts. It's kind of what I've often felt. So I want to win this group now, man. I want to win this group. I'm so happy. We didn't get killed by France too. So seconds into the game, you think, oh, here we go. Like Spalletti's gone. He's gonna have to tender his resignation, fire him, throw Di Lorenzo into Mount Vesuvius, all that shit. You're thinking all of that, and then great showing to bounce back. Like truly, I actually, it felt good. It felt good to care again. Like when DiMarco's goal went in, when Raspadori's goal went in, to really end it off. Same energy, That was very nice. We had other opportunities. Fratesi got the one. He could have got another. I mean, it felt good to feel into it. It felt good to feel into it again. That's good because I was a little concerned in that I wasn't sure how I was going to feel coming back from this, this past summer. The absolute, demoralizing showing, the fact that we have the same coach. And yet, it's good to know that we still care. It's good to know that, I don't know about you, but it's good to know that I still care. I felt something, which is nice. My dick is still getting hard. I didn't need Viagra today, but I mean, just listen. So I'm really happy. So here's why I'm happy that we didn't get killed by France. Because, seconds into the game, you get scored on. You think, okay, this is, we're getting scored on by guys you've never even heard of. Bradley, but what the fuck's his name? Like, this 20-something-year-old from this younger guy from PSG. I've seen his name before, but I don't, I just knew him as the guy that looks like a dog. Literally. I always knew him as the guy who looks like a dog. Like literally. Like I don't know how else to explain it to you. Like his dreads look like dog ears. Like he looks like a dog. Looks like a bass. What's it called? Fucking what's that hound from the Fox and the Hound? A basset hound? I think he looks like a basset hound. Okay. That's just my brain, how it works. I always thought of him as the basset hound guy. Yeah. Then he actually scores on you, and you're like, oh my God, this is demoralizing. Fucking guys who, if Griezmann scores, okay, fine. But if that guy Michael Olise, who can't even speak French, scored on me, I'm gonna be more. I'm gonna be more demoralized. I'm gonna be more demoralized going into the game. I know that Olise is a good player. He's playing for Bayern Munich. He's had a good showing. In the French setup. The fact that he doesn't really speak French because he has like a French mom from Algeria is neither here nor there. The point is he's a good enough player. I shouldn't feel bad that he's scoring. But if he scores, a guy who I'm not familiar with, I'm thinking, fuck, this is really embarrassing. We're going to get completely routed here. And yet, it didn't happen, which, thank God, because when seconds into the game, you get scored on by a guy you've never really heard of, you start to think it's going to get ugly. And then I'm thinking, well, this is awkward because I was telling myself going into this that I was going to let this international break decide where I lie on the Israel-Hamas thing and which side I'm going to, in a partisan way, just support unequivocally going forward. I decided this yesterday, that I was going to decide whose side I'm on in the Israel-Gaza-Palestine thing, okay, based on how this weekend goes. If France had killed us this weekend, if France had killed us today, if they had completely destroyed us, okay, and they had sufficiently upset me, and I would have gotten, I would have had sufficient hate in my heart, I would have thought to myself, I'm going to now I'm full Zionism. I'm the biggest Zionist you've met. I will become the biggest pro-Israel IDF guy you've ever seen because I just want to spite the French national team because I know that most of them are very pro-Palestine, and I know that it would upset more people in France if Gaza's wiped off the map. So that would have been my on one side is if France kill us, now it's fuck Gaza. I'm IDF the whole way. Let them do what they got to do. That would have been my POV. Now, thankfully, that didn't happen, so I don't have to go that route. I could still use my own individual thought and, judgment and nuance and so on. Now, conversely, very dangerous because now that we're going to be riding high, we can't let it get to our heads. And if against Israel on Monday, we have a horrible showing and we lose to Israel, all of a sudden, it's Holocaust 2.0 in my mind. Israel, cancer, off the map. As far as I'm concerned, from the river to the sea, fuck it. That would have been so that could still happen. Yeah. I don't suspect that'll happen. I don't really want it to. I don't want to have to be a partisan guy on the Israel-Gaza thing. I see it as more of a case of two sides that view the other side as completely evil, and neither will stop until it's done. And for that reason, I think Israel will not stop being supported by the United States, and they will eventually dispose of Gaza, unfortunately. That's not a thing that I take great pleasure in, or that real, it's geopolitics playing out in real time, and it's a country looking out for its self-interest, and I think they're going to do a better job of eliminating who they perceive their enemy to be, Gaza, than Hamas. Well, I guess the IDF probably perceive the enemy to be Hamas, specifically, not Gaza, excuse me, but they're focusing on Hamas in Gaza. Let's be as specific as possible here. Then conversely, people in Gaza, or certainly Hamas, I don't know how much support they have in Gaza. Maybe it's a lot, maybe it's a little. I don't know. I've kind of heard conflicting things on that end. Doesn't really matter. The point is Hamas are the ones that are shooting rockets, and they think the IDF is fucking, Israel, Jews, evil. Kill them till there are none left to kill. Now, I think, personally, Israel's going to win. That's just what I think is going to happen. Now, irrespective of what I think will happen, I will pick a partisan side if Israel give us a walloping if Israel just beat us, if they so much as beat us, I will have to consider flirting with the watermelon side. I will have to consider floating with them. And I don't really want to do that. I went to a show 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't park my car close to the comedy club. I had to park like 16 blocks away and run to get to my show on time because there was a pro-Palestinian protest like on the street on St. Catherine Street, downtown Montreal, one of the main it's a dump, but it's one of the main streets in downtown Montreal. It was totally shut off. And I thought, well, yes, okay, I get what they're saying. They're saying free Palestine, but also like maybe we could, like if I could snap my fingers and maybe just the people in Palestine who maybe have, who are just born into this unfortunate circumstance where they can't leave where they're born. I would prefer if they have, a better livelihood, and the individual people who are protesting in the streets, I would like to swap them, perhaps. If I could have that option, So I'm not a big fan of these people, just because I don't like protesting generally. I just think protesting is a little annoying. That's all it is. I get it, but protesting isn't going to do anything, okay? I get that you're entitled to do it, but it won't do anything. So I don't really, I'm going to be mad at you if you're blocking my parking space. So I don't really want to join that side. But if Israel beats us, okay, and I get that, like, some of the Jews I know, okay, Stein and Cohen, the ones that are abundant around here, and there are some Sephardic Jews too, but, listen, all Jews, even the fucking Ashkenazi Jews, are very familiar. They're very friendly with Israel. Many of them like to go there and visit. But really, when you look at Israel, the national team, the national football team, it's a lot of the Mirazi Jews, a lot of Sephardic Jews, it's a lot of the Middle Eastern ones. So it's not even like the Jews that I'm seeing in day-to-day life. But, again, I've decided, okay, just to honor my motherland first. I will, if I feel that my motherland is sufficiently defaced and put through the ringer and humiliated, I will have to come to its honor and, unfortunately, unceremoniously sever all ties I have with all my Jewish friends, of which are many. So that will be very challenging, but we'll see. Thankfully, I don't have to do that after the game today. If France had killed us, I would have become the most anti-Palestinian guy you've ever heard. I would have had to, just out of respect for the Italian cause. They upset me, I got to hurt them back type of thing, But thankfully, I did not have to do that. And that makes me happy. And I will say that thank God we didn't lose to... It's so satisfying to get to beat a country whose prime minister is an effeminate man, okay? When our prime minister is a very masculine woman, okay? Like you know how demoralizing it is to lose to a country whose head of government is, some would say, married to a trans woman? Are you kidding me? Okay? Our prime minister is a trans woman, okay? Our prime minister is a trans woman. Okay? All right? So, I don't even know what I was going for there. I just thought that was a funny thing to say. I don't even know what it was. I just realized I know where to go there. I literally realized I know where to go with that. Brigitte Macron might be a man, but by God, so is Giorgia Meloni. So who's to really say, who's to really say what should disgust you more? I don't know. Little fucking Macron, little dweeb, dude. Little fucking communist dweeb. Just a little pervert. Just fuck a 20-year-old like a man, dude. He's banging a 70-year-old lady. Just a French perverse man. An effeminate, gay, kind of probably maybe pervert French effeminate prime minister. Just not having to lose to him on that day is so satisfying. When our prime minister comes out and says, "Noi siamo l'Italia, siamo noi." I'm doing Mussolini there, to be fair. I probably should. I was going a little more Mussolini than I was going Meloni there. But you know, it's one of the things that just makes you feel good. Death, taxes, and your country beating the French. As an Italian person, 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and beating the French, making you feel good and giving you more life and making you feel like you're better. I don't know what it is. I'm being pulled in a direction where I want to know more about history and World War II and Vichy France and how they wound up getting to a point where politically now they've elected who they have elected. And it just feels nice. On some level, there's like an animalistic thing to it as well, where you kind of go, well, it does, goddamn, does it feel good to just kind of to beat the country that doesn't necessarily have, I guess that in some ways just has a kind of diametrically opposed, and there are people in France that are aligned with some of the politics that you'll see in Italy, but in some ways, like currently anyway, based on the current landscape of who's in power, who runs the government, it's nice to see somebody that's running the country in a diametrically opposed way lose to you, you know, and to guys who have the same names as me, Giacomo, okay, Samuele, Sandro. That's nice. I don't know why. It makes me feel good. I'm wearing pastels, combinazione a 3 colori. Questo mi fa fare bene. Questo mi fa sentire bene, capito? Mi sento bene. Mi sono messo gli occhiali, sto parlando italiano, abbiamo vinto. Viva l'Italia, in bocca al lupo a tutti noi. That's what it comes down to. All right. I'm Sam Adamo. I got to run to a show right now. We're going to pump this out overnight for the weekend. This will hold you guys over for a few days. We'll be back after the Israel game. Inshallah. Inshallah, we don't have to all collectively become full binary, you know, one side or the other in the Israel-Gaza thing. I'd be very upset if it comes to that point. I'm really pulling for it to not happen. We got to keep the momentum rolling here. Am I saying uomini forti, destini forti? I don't know. Probably not yet. I like that Luciano Spalletti made some adjustments. I like that he seems to have tried to rectify things by making it a little bit simpler. Hopefully, over time, his ideas can be absorbed. You know, it's all to play for. So, viva l'Italia, in bocca al lupo a tutti noi. Ciao.